What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the DMG Tech Show. I'm your host, Jonathan Parkinson. In this episode, we're going to be talking about funding. Now, anybody that's been around Linux or knows a bit about Linux understands that 99% of it is open sourced, which means that it is normally free to use, though there's options of giving back in many different ways, from, buying a cup of coffee to donating actual funding to spreading the word. There's just tons and tons of ways that Linux has been, doing it through the years to get some money into the developers' hands for all the hard work they do. Well, recently, Elementary OS, which is one of the more popular distros right now as far as how clean it looks in comparison to some of the clunky aesthetics some of the older Linux distros have been using, has decided, well, they haven't decided yet, so they've just put up the notion that they are looking to make funding more readily available for their developers, so that they can spend more time on the operating system, and thus it'll trickle down to the user's experience being a lot better. Things are going to be a lot smoother and efficient. Well, this has actually kind of stifled some feathers among some of the Linux faithful. Whether or not who's right and who's wrong is really more of an opinion at this point. This is really because it's kind of just a groundbreaking area, and I'm kind of on the side of Elementary OS as far as this goes. It's just about how they're going to do it is really comes down to it. So what's ends up happening here is, like I was saying, Elementary OS wants to create a way that they can get some money to the developers so they can spend more time away from their regular jobs and be working on Elementary OS either full-time or more regularly than what they're doing currently. And, that should be a given. We want these developers to be working on it. A lot of them, do this purely out of hobby and not to make a living. So, how many people out there are just using these programs without giving anything back in the form of development? Until you've actually built something from, anyway, even if it's not from the ground up completely, it takes a ton of work, a ton of effort, a ton of headaches, and plenty of cups of coffee. But what's happening now is over in the elementary community, they've kind of talked about it. But this, gentleman here, Daniel, what he talks about is, here's some ideas that they've kind of talked about. And, what some of the things they've mentioned is they would either create a $500, $600 elementary desktop in the same way that the Mint box is available, but it'll ship with Elementary OS. One problem with that is it's a desktop. I know for myself, I'm not a desktop user. I mean, I have a desktop, but I don't enjoy desktops quite that much. I rather have a netbook or laptop, and I'll just install Linux on that so I can do it on the go, because I'm on the go quite a bit. As well as, to build one device for everybody to like is going to be kind of hard. Everybody has their preferences of what they want their stuff to look like. Especially when Elementary OS is such a nice looking operating system, you wouldn't want to get some just bulky, clunky, ugly desktop to go along with it. You'd want it to complement each other. The next option, which is probably going to be the more probable option in my opinion, is going to be for Elementary OS to create a area where it could be Elementary OS only applications, where developers can charge in the same way as Android, Windows, and iOS have their app stores, in which developers can make a living off of that as well. So, they can say, for example, Vocal, which is a popular podcasting app. He says on here that he believes they're charging $1 now for it. I love Vocal; it's a beautiful app. And when you know Linux for a long time, you realize some of the premium stuff there's not as much premium stuff out there. And hopefully this actually could be a good way of getting more premium content available on Linux, since the developers will have a more push to want to build for it, since they're going to get an option of making money. So imagine if somebody's already has a good hobby, loves doing what they're doing, but then you entice them with a little bit of cash. They might go the extra step to making it that much better, and then maybe they'll be obligated to do long-term support for the long run of it. Or who knows, they might be able to then sell it off to another developer who can then upkeep it in a way of making money. I don't know. There's plenty of ways of going about that. That's kind of, more on that side, not for the consumer side quite as much. So I'll go ahead and click, because I haven't clicked this yet. I'll click the software and we'll see what other people have said. So yeah, there's 381 votes now, and it looks like the majority of people are kind of agreeing with that the software is going to be the option. The reason I'm bringing this up, though, or at least doing this video, is because this is kind of a trying time then for Linux. Linux has always been in the shadows for the most part. We're starting to see the Ubuntu phone now flourish in Europe a bit. They're already releasing their first try at it as far as the actual hardware, the device itself. So in the next few years, I have a feeling Linux is really going to grasp on. I've been around the Chromebook world for quite a while now, in Chrome OS in general, and the way Linux, in the form of completely wiping Chrome OS and installing a Linux distribution, or running Linux alongside Chrome OS in the form of Crouton, has grasped a lot in the community. A ton of people are doing it. More people than I've ever imagined doing it. Especially a lot of the younger generations that are getting these Chromebooks for school or through Christmas, since they're a cheaper device. They want to be able to game on it with Steam and stuff like that. So the only way for them to have that option is if they install Linux on that. And so Linux is going to be just kind of flourishing in the next 5 years, a lot quicker than it has been in the past. And that's because the UI is a little more enjoyable to use. There's now a software store such as the Ubuntu. Developers are now working on operating systems like Elementary OS, which is now aesthetically appealing. So this conversation was bound to happen. Just an operating system was going to have to lead the way in this talk, more or less. I mean, people have tried it in the past, don't get me wrong. But the big argument with this is going to be the fact that Elementary OS is built upon Ubuntu. So it wasn't built directly from the ground up, but that really shouldn't matter, because other people are profiting, in certain ways. Android is an open source, but everybody's built their own version of Android, and they put it onto their handsets with certain features, and those companies are profiting off of that. So the same thing is going to happen with Linux. For the most part, there should be there should be main apps that should cross-platform across all operating systems on Linux for the most part. But maybe skins or specific applications that would work with a direct UI should be able to be bought within each distro. So there should be, a music app, an imaging app like GIMP, all these, main applications that are already out there. Those should stay free of charge across all Linux distributions. But then there should be complementary applications that developers can build within an operating system that can only be purchased and that can only work within a operating system. And maybe, they could have it to where it's not so hard for them to build it on multiple distros. That way, other distros can create a store in the same way, and that developer can build the distro or their program that'll work across, a few different Linux distros out there. So then, because Linux users like to switch around, they're not always going to stick with one operating system for 20 years. That's not how it works. I mean, some people might, but a lot of people, they want to get out there and try a different operating system, see what it's all about. And so it'd be nice if a lot of these programs could cross-platform in a way. Maybe have some general Linux account that can keep track of what you've purchased, and could be set up for the the open source foundation. Just somebody has to take care of that, keep everybody in line, in the same way as Google's keeping all the Android platforms in line. And then from there, everybody kind of tweaks it to their own liking for their own, device that they're releasing it. So really, this is just, kind of a question out there. Just kind of pointing this out there to see what other people have to think about. I'm, for one, I understand the argument that some people are assuming that Linux should always be open source, so it should always be free. In the real world, nothing's free, never has been. it might be free for you to use, but it's not free for somebody's time that's taking out to build it. So again, it's going to come down to morals. Should we be paying for something? The way I look at it is the main source code for a Linux distro is out there. You can always grab it, build whatever you want, and not let anybody else use it if you want to be that way. But if you want to be a part of a community, a growing community, and you want the developers to put their effort into it and make something worth your while, then be willing to fork out for it. Again, there's a lot of details that need to be worked out still. I am, all for this type of way of going about it, where you're putting votes up and, talking to the community and seeing what majority of people want. It's a good way of doing a democracy. You're not going to get 100% approval for anybody. It's just not the way life's going to work. So as long as we're getting a majority of people, like this 66 to 26, like, sorry for the 27%ers and the 7%ers, both of you combined still don't match up for the majority vote. So, unfortunate for you. It's the way it works. If you don't like it, that's the tough luck of life. But again, if you do, have any comments about this, you can leave that down below. You can head over to the elementary community if you want to. You can go over to elementary.io. They do have a journal going on, which I believe you can kind of talk or leave some support there. But again, this is all just speculative right now of what's going on. So, leave your comments down below. I'll read them. If I don't prove them, I'll just talk to you on the side, depending, just so there's not some huge big war going on. Or just find me on Google Plus, or find other people on Google Plus. As you can see, here's Cassidy, James, Blade, I believe how you say it, Danielle Foray. If all these gentlemen, they're some of the lead guys for Elementary OS. You can find them on Google Plus. At the elementary community. Again, this is going to be a debate that's going to be starting to go, I feel, in more and more areas. Somebody as big as Ubuntu might not have to do this, but if we want to see some of these smaller Linux distros come up and make some high quality products, we might need to give them a push. And who knows, maybe we'll start seeing some Kickstarter, but I'm really skeptical on things like Kickstarters. Just because I've seen those, burn a lot of people in the long run, and I don't really want to see that in the shape of a Linux distro, because it's too easy to say, I'm going to build something, and nobody ever sees anything for 6 months and never ever again. Whereas at least with hardware, you can kind of see videos of them working stuff out. Software, it's a little harder. But anyways, like I was saying, leave your comments down below, what you want to think about that. Get out there, discuss it with your friends, talk to people on Reddit, on your communities, on your social medias, wherever it's at. Get the word out there. Let people know how you feel about it. We need to get this conversation up and let developers know what's going to be the future of their operating system if they do choose to go this route. Are they going to have enough supporters? Are people going to kick them to the curb? Hopefully not. Hopefully this works out for both parties, both consumer and developer. And always, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next video. Peace.